G'day everyone, Kev from Basketball Victoria here. In this video, I'm going to talk you through what you need to do as an association to set up registrations for the season. Now, a prerequisite of this task is that you set up the competition season, and we've got a video that walks you through that process. In this video, we'll talk about the registration supplements, which include family member discounts, custom fields, products, and vouchers. And then I'll talk you through the registration options that you have at your disposal. The first being participant to association, where participants will register centrally to your association and you put them into teams. So this is typically done by smaller country associations for their junior competition to ensure that all of the teams are fair. Your second option, which is typically done by senior domestic competitions, is the team to season and corresponding participant to team forms. So the way this works is a team organizer will register the team itself, and then they'll get sent by PlayHQ the participant to team link specific to their team, and they will then send that link onto their teammates to register direct into their team. And then the third one is club registrations, which is which is the registration method available to larger associations that have a club structure. Now, typically, you would only do one of these methods per competition season. And if you find that you are doing, a combination of these within your association, it might be prudent to separate your competitions like into junior domestic and senior domestic rather than having one all-encompassing competition. Now, next, I'm going to touch on some registration supplements that you could add to your registration form. The first one being custom fields. So with custom fields, in the registration tab, and if you click on custom fields, you can ask participants questions at the point of registration over and above the standard set of questions that are inbuilt into the PlayHQ system. Now, with custom fields, you can also ask questions if you are have a club structure. You can ask questions of participants when they register to their club, in addition to those that register at your association level. So that can be set up in there. The second one I'd like to touch on is family member discounts. Now, these only apply at association level for those directly registering to your association, whether it's a participant to season form or a participant to team form, and they can be set up in here at the bottom of the registration tab for the association tab. And the way it works is you could set a fixed percentage off all subsequent registrations. The third supplement that you could set up is products, and again, these only apply to registrations at your level, not to club registrations, but you could set them up in shop. And there are a couple of different options here where you could set up your products, where you've got Easy Merch, where PlayHQ have partnered with a delivery provider, TPF, to provide the ability for a standard set of merchandise to be ordered, your organization's logo on it, and you don't need to hold stock. So when it's ordered, it gets delivered straight to the participant, and also your club gets a cut of the profit generated by that sale. Or you could click on the merchandise tab where you've got the ability to sell your own merchandise that you have to, that your club, I guess, creates and manages stock of. And the final supplement is vouchers. So if you click in My Organization and Overview and Vouchers, you can create voucher codes that you could pass to participants. When they enter that particular code, they get a discount off the registration. So I'm just going to return to the registration tab of my competition season and walk you through each of the registration form types. So I'll start with participant this season. So just recapping, this is where participants register directly to your association and you have to put them in teams. So the first thing you need to do is set up your registration window. Now, typically you would just set this to any date in the past, because normally when you are setting up this form, you're ready to take registrations. And the end date, you need to set and consider when your season starts, how long in advance of the first game people want to see their fixture, how long it takes you to do any grading or grading of teams or players and team selection. And once you've worked out that, then you can set your registration closing date. And I like to set it to 11:55 p.m. because if you're telling everyone that registrations is closing on a particular date, some people like to leave it to the last minute. Scrolling down, fees from the state and national bodies are inherited. So that's the BV license and the BA game development levy. And over here, you've got the ability to set your player fee. You've got the option to set advanced player fees where you could charge a fee that is variable depending on the gender or age of a player. So, for example, you might want to have a discounted price for girls because you want to increase your female participation. So you could set that in here. Or there's manual select options where you give the participant a choice to select what tier of membership they've got, and then the price that pops up for them is dependent on what option they select. For this example, I'm just going to go back to standard player fee and set that to $100. We recommend that you pop $0 in the coach fee and the team manager fee. And any supplements that you've created at the previous stage will show up here, and you can add any products that you've created that you want to sell at the point of registration here. In pricing information, self-explanatory, you could put things in there. Additional information, you might want to put things like what days games will be played or what days trainings are, especially if you're doing a participant to association form. And toggle on your terms and conditions. So if you've got terms and conditions configured in your database settings, it's important to turn that on so that they have to agree to these terms and conditions at the point of registration. Now, in most cases, I'm a big advocate of making the registration form visible. And then we hit save at the top right. And I'll explain what that registration visibility means. Now, when you've configured this form, it's got a registration link, which you can copy and you can send that out. You can also put that on your website and publish it to your socials so participants can register. However, personally, in most cases, not in all cases, but in most cases, I'm not a fan of sending out that link. I prefer to direct participants to the registration page. So if you go to playhq.com, search for your association and click on the register tab, you will see the form that you've just configured and made visible is available for selection. So participants can click on this form and register. The link I like to share with them is the registration tab's URL. And I'm a big fan of sending this out instead of the direct link to the registration form because it gives you more control later on in the registration process. So we set our closing date to the 30th of September for the upcoming summer season. Now just say that on the 1st of October, what you would do, you would go back into here and go to manage and set this form to hidden because registrations are now closed. So if that's the case, what's going to happen is if you send everyone this link, they come to this form on October 1st or after the closing date, and they'll see that the registration form is not there because it's now set to hidden. You can also extend out the registration window of that form that's now hidden, and no one can register because no one's got the direct link to that form. They've only got the link to this page, and by that time, this form that you can see here now will be hidden. So what they'll do is they'll scroll down and go, I can't register, so I need to contact someone. They'll contact your association. And they'll say, look, I'm sorry, I've missed the cutoff date. Can you squeeze my child in? Now, let's say, for example, they're an under 12 boy. Your association season is now full of under 12 boys. You don't have any room. You say, sorry, mate, registrations are now closed. Make sure you get in on time next season. However, if that parent calls you up and says that they are a under 18 girl, and you might not have enough under 18 girls, what you can then do is come back to here, copy the direct link to the form that's now hidden, and you've extended out the registration window. You can then send this link to that parent so they can register their under 18 daughter because you want to allow them in without running the risk of there being open season and everyone's registering while you extend out the registration window. You can also use this to get your coaches and team managers to register after player registrations have closed, because quite often we recruit our coaches and team managers after team selection has happened. So you can also send out the direct hidden link to coaches and team managers, reducing the risk of players that are not that haven't registered by the closing date. Yeah, we don't want to allow them to also jump in. But as I said at the start, if this link is sent out from the start and advertised on your website and socials, it's gone viral. You're going to have a lot more difficulty restricting who you allow to register late. So that's the participant to season form. If your competition season, typically those that are running a senior domestic competition, um, you will be using the team to season form and the participant to team form. So let's set up the team to season form. Similarly, like the participant to association form, you want to set your opening date to a date prior to today, and then you want to set your closing date for team registrations. Set your team entry fee, whatever that may be. Choose the grades that the team captain registering or the team organizer registering using this form can choose to enter their team into. You can enter pricing information and additional information and turn on your terms and conditions. And similarly, I would also tick the visible box for the registration visibility. When you save this, it will ask you, would you like to also set up the corresponding participant to team form? So you want to proceed with that. Again, set your registration start date to any day prior to today. Now, with the end date, unlike the team to season form where you want to close off the team entries before the start of the season, I recommend that you keep the participant to team form open until the end of the regular season. So that way, as players join that team mid-season, they can register. We obviously don't want them to register in finals, so you want to close it at the end of the regular season. Some people like to put it to the point where participants can no longer qualify for finals, which I get the rationale for that. However, I have a different opinion, and that is to keep it open till the end of the season because participants might still join after that point that the player can no longer make finals. So you might have a situation where a team is struggling for players or a couple of players have gone overseas who have qualified for finals, they're coming back for finals. You get a fill-in to play for a few games. Now, Basketball Victoria's rule says that a fill-in can only play a maximum of 2 games per calendar year across the state. So therefore, if they need a fill-in for 4 games, and let's be honest, a lot of the times teams that are languishing at the bottom of the ladder who won't make finals, they're the ones that need to recruit new players to keep that team alive. So finals might not be an issue anyway, but that way they can register, play, and still fulfill that requirement of the Basketball Victoria license, and just that they won't be eligible to play in finals, but they can still register. So once we've set our registration window, player fee might be $0, might be $10, depending on your association. And you keep scrolling down. Similarly, you can set your pricing information and additional information and turn on your terms and conditions. So that is your team to season and participant to team form. Now, as I touched on with the participant to association form, I recommend making the team to season form visible and not sending out this link, but sending out your registration tab link, which will now have 2 forms there. Now, as touched on, you typically wouldn't do this. You typically would only have 1 registration method per competition season and split if you need to have, like, for example, you've got your senior domestic players, you want them to register a team, and your junior domestic players, if you're a smaller country association, registering as a player. By setting it up like this would create a bit of confusion because the senior players would register there and not direct to their team. But that's what it would look like. And similarly, if you hide the form once registration's closed, you've got a bit more control over who you allow in late. And if you are a larger association and you have a club structure, You wouldn't set up any of these forms in the association tab, but you would go into the club tab to set up your club registrations. So what you can do is you could roll over clubs from a previous season that were involved in a previous season of yours in this competition, or you can invite clubs. So I'm just going to invite that club, and let's invite that club. Okay, so you can invite all of your clubs. You could set up here your club team allocation dates. So what this means is when are team entries closing for your clubs. So again, typically I would set this to any date before today, and I would close off my team entries, say I want it on that date at 11:55 p.m. Scrolling down, fees will be inherited by players registering to their club from state and national body levels, and also your association player fee will also be inherited. So anyone registering to their club will have to pay their club fee, the association fee, and their memberships at state and national body if due. So you might charge $20 for players, or you might charge $0 for players registering to their club, but that's a fee they pay to the association. Similarly, the advance fees, coach fees, team manager fees, like in the participant to association form, are there, and turn on terms and conditions, which means that your association's terms and conditions need to be agreed to by players registering to their club. And then you hit save, and then that allows clubs to set up their own registration forms and take registrations for this season at your association. So there are your options. As mentioned, we touched on registration supplements, the participant to association form, which is for smaller country associations who have players registered to their association, and then they put them in teams. So that typically happens for junior domestic. The team to season and participant to team option, which is typically done for senior domestic, and club structures where you set up your club registrations for those larger associations where clubs enter teams as opposed to independent people entering teams. So I hope this video helps. As always, if you require assistance with anything PlayHQ related, please visit support.playhq.com, scroll down a bit, hit the contact us button, and follow the prompts for basketball in Victoria.